Fantasy Rap
with Austin and Ozzy.
Oh, I just love those boys.
Hey everyone, this is Fantasy Rap, and I'm your host Ozzy.
And I'm your co-host Austin.
You can find us on fantasyrap.com. That is fantasywrap.com. Hey everybody, welcome to week 8 of the NFL and fantasy season. We're going to start off with P's Picks. Hey everybody, we are here with Sutton for P's Picks. Hi Sutton. How are you?
Good.
Did you watch the game last night? Was it a good game? Yeah? Well, the Vikings and the Rams played each other last night, right? Okay. Who would you like us to talk about? You want us to talk about the Vikings? Okay, we will do that. Can you look up there and say goodbye?
Bye.
And there you have it. Sutton decided that we're going to talk about Minnesota. Interesting game last night.
Yeah, obviously all the Vikings fans are pretty salty about the somehow missed blatant face mask in the end zone there.
Well, so. I read the info afterward, and apparently the who's the main guy? The head referee. He did not see it because of the angle he was at. He admitted he missed it, obviously. Mm-hmm. He said, I didn't see it. Mm-hmm. And the other guy who has responsibility for watching also, apparently there were people in between him and the players. Yeah. So he didn't get a clear look at it either. So, I mean, we've seen it happen before, phantom calls or calls that are completely missed. It happens. I mean, Was Minnesota going to go 95 yards and score a touchdown and 2-point conversion? Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, they started out that first drive. I mean, they moved the ball.
First 2 drives.
Yeah.
I mean, you had 4 for the first time all season. You had 4 touchdowns in the first 4 drives between the 2 teams.
Yep.
So, but then all of a sudden it was. I was sitting there thinking Justin Jefferson. He had 65 yards receiving in the first quarter. I think it was. Yeah, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh man, he's gonna go." Yeah, and it never happened. Mm-hmm. So we are going to talk about Minnesota. Minnesota didn't do a whole lot. The 2 big drives. Yep. A couple of field goals, I believe, after that. Yep. And we had Darnold going 18 of 25 for 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 rushes, 6 yards.
Not bad, but no. They would get they'd get down to the 8-9 and then just completely stall out and couldn't get it, besides those touchdowns, into the end zone. So settled out for field goals, which ended up, costing you the game for, not being able to at least convert one more of those into a touchdown. So
I mean, Justin Jefferson made an unbelievable catch along the sideline.
Yeah, that was
late in the game to set them up. And I mean, it was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Pinning it and holding on, and just a great and getting both feet in.
Yeah.
So, moving on, we had Aaron Jones. He had 2 catches on 2 targets for 37 yards, 19 rushes, 58 yards. Not the game that you'd expect out of him?
No. You would have liked to have seen a touchdown. 2 catches for the 37 yards. The one was on he had the majority on that one. I thought at game speed when it happened, I thought he was going to be ruled out because he made a beautiful play, had to turn and kind of fall backwards to catch it. And to me, in game speed, when I just looked up and I'm like, oh, I think he's out. And then ended up being in.
It was. I was questioning the same thing. I mean, where exactly did his butt cheek hit when he landed? Was it inbounds or out of bounds? And it's interesting that there's a follow through with the foot. Mm-hmm. So if your foot comes down, your second foot comes down, and you don't hold it off the ground and it touches out of bounds, when your foot goes down, the front of it goes down, it's incomplete.
Yep.
But if you land on your backside, as soon as you touch, you're good.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why if you land inbounds with one foot and the back of your other foot touches, it should immediately be a catch.
Yeah, well, especially in the end zone, the big one is always when they come down on their toes and the heel or one of the heels touches,
And I'm thinking about was it Isaiah Likely? Who was it at the back of the end zone?
Probably, yeah.
Were they playing against Kansas City?
Yeah.
And Likely
he
caught
should have
that
had
one.
the second touchdown.
Yeah,
But yeah.
And Likely's his foot came down, and then the tips of his toes touched, he was out.
But you can toe drag, and if you drag both feet, you see it sometimes on the sidelines in the end zones.
Right.
You catch the ball and you drag your feet and they go out of bounds.
Right.
That's a catch.
Yeah.
So there's, I think they need to try and clear that.
It's
a little more, but
right. It's kind of a if you land on your butt or you land on anything other than your feet, well then they take it as the first part that touches the ground, but they don't do that with the feet, and it just hasn't made sense to me.
Yep.
So I only wrote down one other player because I only thought one other player. I mean, everyone else had 2 or fewer catches.
Yeah.
Granted, there were 2 touchdowns, but Addison had like 1 or 2 catches.
I know we had one for sure because I watched it. That was the one they did almost like a double out route with Jefferson and Addison was the deeper out route. And Cousins threw it, he caught it, and he, momentum took him out of bounds, happened to be on the Rams sideline. Did you catch the guy that punched the ball during it? Yeah, there was a Rams player. He was standing there, and Addison came out, and his momentum kind of took him into him. And instead of, bracing to so both of you don't.
Oh, this was actually on the sidelines?
On the sideline,
oh,
yeah.
Man.
The guy he was standing there on, obviously not on the sideline, but back a little bit. And Addison came in with the momentum from the play. And the guy, he punched the ball out of Addison's hand. And Addison kind of looked around for a ref. And the guy just stared at him. It was kind of funny.
Should have been a taunting penalty.
But yeah, it was
because he had no right touching player or ball.
It reminded me a little of last week the Packers Houston game when it was a TJ Slayton on the sideline for the Packers. CJ Stroud came out of bounds and he kind of threw Slayton kind of leaned into a shoulder a little bit deep into the Packers sideline. So. And it didn't get called, but yeah.
Where's your brain?
Yeah.
Where is your brain? So the only other player I had was JJ. 8 catches on 9 targets, 115 yards. A respectable game, especially in PPR.
Yeah, I mean big game, yeah, PPR. But with how hot he started, you're almost a little disappointed.
Very disappointed.
Where I mean, he still had what's that PPR.
19.5.
19.5. I mean, you're like I said, that first drive, I'm like, he's going for like 45 plus.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to have a monster game. Yeah. And then once the second half hit, and I had, Nick, our friend of the podcast, had sent me in the Yahoo League a trade of Kyron Williams, who's one of my 2 starting running backs, for Justin Jefferson. Totally fair trade.
Yeah.
And probably 5 minutes before the game, I finally had been sitting out there for like 2 weeks, because I just couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah.
And I declined it. And I had actually, after the first drive for the Vikings, and then Kyron, ripped off like a 13-yard run first play for the Rams, I text Nick and I was like, I think this is going to, like, if we did this trade, I truly think it would be a net zero impact for either of our teams.
Yeah.
And it ended up, I mean, Kyron ended up with 3 more, it was about 3 more fantasy points than JJ, so it was just one of those,
The difference is that, if you're trading from an area of strength, it obviously benefits your teams.
Yep.
But you're right. I mean, it benefits both in a different way.
Yes. Yeah.
But,
My strength on my team is running backs, his is receivers.
Yep.
But I just couldn't. Kyron, I've got he's, he was my first round. Actually, no, he was my second pick. But, he was one of those guys that I was like, I'm going to get him this year. So he's
Gotcha.
kind of.
Yeah, you were high on him. So.
Yeah. So.
And JJ was my first round pick. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's, like I said, it's worked
Although that was at 13?
Makes sense.
10? 13? I don't remember. Moving on, we've got our picks of the week. And at quarterback, CBS has Josh Allen.
When I was, looking, doing my little research here before the show to pick mine, I saw the last name on the list, and it's matchup based, but for who you picked for him to not be above Stroud in this list is, to me, doesn't make any sense. But.
Yeah. So Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Hurts, and Bo Nix. That's like when Isaiah Pacheco was first in running backs last year every time instead of CMC. Mm-hmm. I don't know why Bo Nix is on there. I don't
matchup.
Yeah, it
the
is.
Panthers so.
So I decided to go Jordan Love versus Jacksonville. Jordan's been. I mean, he's been making some great throws. He's also thrown a couple picks, and I mean, in at least the last couple of games, he's thrown picks. I still think that against Jacksonville, he's probably going to eat them up.
Yeah, Jacksonville is not good. Their defense can't stop anybody, and Love should be. I think he's going to put up. I think he'll. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up as the number one fantasy quarterback. Yeah. I could see him easily throwing
350 and 3 or 4 touchdowns.
3 or 4,
yeah,
probably with a pick, just because that's
possibly
kind of what he. There's a. I didn't show you it the other day, but there's a meme of Jordan Love, and it's him as he's in a throwing motion, and there's like the angel devil on his shoulder. Yeah. The one's Aaron Rodgers, and the other one's Brett Favre, and Aaron is like, play it safe, and
throw it away if you have to.
The Favre one just says F it, we ball.
That's
sometimes
classic.
Like I said, somebody. I can't remember who. I read it somewhere or saw it, and somebody called Jordan Love. They're like, he's the second coming of Aaron Rodgers, and someone's like, no, he's kind of been Brett Favre 2.0.
Well,
a little bit.
I think he's somewhere in between.
Yeah, I
mean, he's a little more freewheeling. Mm-hmm. I mean, that 50+ yard pass to Jaden Reed that. 2-3 weeks ago,
triple covered.
Yeah.
Reed tracked it and made a great play on the ball.
Yeah. And the defender went behind instead of making a play on the ball and everything. I mean, he takes some chances, which is kind of cool.
I like it.
But he also he throws some passes a la Rodgers that are, there's the window is
Tucker Kraft touchdown last week.
Yeah,
where the defender missed it. It went like right through his hands. But I mean, still.
But you've seen that out of Rodgers. Yeah. I mean, you've seen a ball that misses the defender's hand by an inch or two. Yep. Give him. I give the quarterback credit on that because I mean, obviously they have no clue if the guy's hand is going to go up or not, but they put it where they have to put it. Mm-hmm. And I think Jordan Love does a good job of that also.
Yep. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm surprised he's not above Stroud in that list. But I didn't make it. So
it's CBS. I don't get how they determine who's going to do what.
Yep. So my start is we're going to welcome Tua back this week. Cleared protocol. He's still listed as questionable, but I think he's been, he started practice on Wednesday. From what it sounds like, he looks like himself pre-concussion, which, week 1 was pretty good, for them. Tyreek popped up, I think either today or yesterday with a foot injury, so he's questionable. So, would suck, if Tyreek misses, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But they're playing Arizona, and Arizona, as bad as the Dolphins' offensive line has been for the other quarterbacks, Arizona hasn't been able to generate any sort of pass rush all season. So I think Tua's going to be pretty comfortable back there slinging it, and I think he's been itching to get back out there. Like I said, it's again, another scary concussion, but it wasn't a pulled hammy or a sprained ankle or a throwing arm, injury.
Right.
Like it wasn't, it was a physical injury, yes, but not one that, should affect his physical ability coming back.
It was a soft tissue injury, though.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's not, like I said,
kidding.
it's not like he, broke his thumb or, or something like that. But
the interesting thing is, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but, a couple years ago when he had that bad one, they were only like a week or two apart, weren't they?
Yeah, it was I think it was 2 weeks later when he got the second one, and then they shut him down for the season. So
it's always
there
scary.
is that risk, but.
Yeah, it's scary, but I do like the play, and I see that you've that was potentially my wide receiver also. But moving on, we go to our running backs. We've got Henry, Barkley, Dobbins, Mixon, Gibbs, and Kenneth Walker. And I am going to go Bijan versus Tampa. Yeah. Tampa has been in very, very, very high-scoring games. I read an article where, the three or so, or it was either, I don't remember if it was their last 3 games or 3 games this season, have been 55-plus points between combined. Cool. Yeah. And so it's one of those where they're going to give up the points, much like they did last week. And I think that Bijan is going to run all over that defense. Yeah, the last 2 weeks, Bijan's been one of the more consistent out of everybody because Kirk's been up and down. And that defense, Not playing him this week.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. And
he'll probably have another 55-point game.
That's how it goes. You bench him, and I made that joke with Mark Andrews when we had the 2 touchdowns. I'm like, it's because I'm not playing him,
right?
So I said, for the sake of everybody else I'll continue to bench him. So, but yeah, in Tampa, obviously that was a pretty emotional game for them. Losing Evans for, I think they said he was out to week 12, but for sure.
Yeah, it's at least 4 weeks.
Yeah. And then
I think they've got their buy-in there.
Yeah. So, so minimum 4 weeks probably for Mike Evans. And then obviously Chris Godwin, with the dislocated, did he end up, ankle. I think he ended up having surgery. I would assume so.
I don't recall.
Yeah. So, that was that's plan, a pretty emotional, game that happened, so who knows, that can affect the other side of the ball too, so that defense might not be able to
it's one of those and it's one of those, do they rally because of the injuries or do they we have no offense now, so
I think it's probably a lot of it's going to be we don't have no offense because as soon as Mike Evans got hurt, I think it was the Evans injury, the next 2 out of 3 passes that Baker threw were picks. So,
Well, they do have Kate Otten still. So
they do, but he might die because he took some shots in that game. He took some big hits. So we'll see. And you got Rashad White, who he's probably going to end up with 10 targets this week. Bucky Irving sounds like he's going to play. So he'll be somewhat involved as well. So, and then obviously everybody ran out to get McMillan and Sterling Shepard. They still have the Trey Palmer, I believe. So, they still have some options there, but so they could potentially end up making it interesting, but we'll see. Like I said, Bijan's finally been showing that, that number 2 or 3 fantasy running back that he was drafted as.
Yep.
So I'm going with Kareem Hunt against the Raiders. It's a great matchup.
Feed the hot hand.
Yep, feed the hot hand. Great matchup. They just brought in Hopkins, but he's probably going to end up with the Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper only ran 12 routes last week. I would assume they're probably going to end up, they'll probably have some packages for Hopkins, but I doubt he's going to play a whole lot. And, Kareem Hunt's been, they're kind of their bread and butter right now in Kansas City is run the ball, run it well.
Well, they haven't passed it very well, so.
I know. Well, and then play defense.
I mean, I was reading someone's article on Patrick Mahomes, and it's, do you actually drop Patrick Mahomes?
I've been saying for a couple of weeks now that he's a streaming quarterback this season.
Yeah, it's truly. I mean, I drafted him in one of my leagues, and I remember when Patrick Mahomes was in the discussion for the top player to be picked a few years ago.
Yeah,
and I think he's still a good quarterback, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone was saying this is the greatest guy who's ever played.
Yeah, last week he did not look very good. Historically, though, he has absolutely destroyed the Raiders. So,
yeah, the Raiders beat him last year.
Oh yeah. But okay, minus a game. He still probably had a good game though. That's
No, he wasn't that good. It depends on what. I don't know when it was during the season. I think it was early, and early he was horrible.
Yeah.
So he gets hot at the right time.
Yes, historically he's been very good against Las Vegas, 98% of the time, whatever you want to say. So if they get up in that game, which they probably will, because we got Gardner Minshew because of the Aiden O'Connell injury. So Gardner in there who has been bad. I
heard they're trading for Justin Fields.
That would be interesting.
That would be interesting. Someone proposed that in one of the articles that I read, and I was like, I could see it.
But
I mean, he's a free agent after the year, as is drawing a blank. Russ Wilson.
I mean, it would make sense.
I think they're both at the end of the year, so if they're planning on keeping Russ longer term, why not? You're giving up a 6th rounder. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
Trade him for a 3rd or a 4th.
Yep. So, like I said, I like Hunt this week matchup, and, he had like 20-something carries last week, 20-something the week before. They've been feeding him, and he looks, younger out there than he did when he was on the Browns. So, I think if they can
get
up,
he's still young though.
He's one of those guys.
Isn't he like 28, 29?
Somewhere around there, yeah. But he's one of those guys.
It seems like he's been around for like 15 years.
Yeah, well, you get guys that hop around teams, and then like his thing, he's been unsigned, before for stretches of time, and then gets picked up by either Cleveland or Kansas City. It seems like So yes, he's still young, but he's one of those guys too that there's mileage there.
Well, left,
yeah. So but
still got a little gas in his tank.
Yep.
Moving on, we've got our wide receivers: Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, and Jaden Reed.
Yep.
So I am going to go with one of my favorites, Neighbors.
It's a tough matchup.
It is, but the only chance that they've got is to get Neighbors the ball.
Yeah.
And granted, he didn't have a good game last week, but he's their only hope.
Well, the plus side is that it's at Pittsburgh, because Daniel Jones can't throw touchdowns in his home stadium.
Yeah.
The fact that they paid him all, like I said, he's flashes of being a good quarterback, but it's time to pull the plug on that. I don't get it.
Maybe he doesn't want to throw them at home because he knows he'll get ridiculed either way. That's a horrible crowd.
Yeah, it is. New York. God, I couldn't imagine.
Whether it's baseball whether it's football. I mean, it's they set their expectations incorrectly because I mean, it's kind of like Jets fans. We've got Aaron Rodgers. Oh, okay.
A 40-year-old after an Achilles.
Right. I mean,
Aaron
well, and
Rodgers.
even before him, that, it was like we didn't want him anymore. I mean, if you think that he is going to resurrect your franchise, dream on.
Yeah.
Dream on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I like Neighbors because it's the necessity. Like I said, it's a tough matchup against Pittsburgh.
It is,
but he's going to get peppered with targets because he truly is their only option. So
well, they've got Wandale.
Wando, he hasn't been that great. I mean,
No.
he had a lot of targets when Neighbors was there. He was getting a lot of
They
targets,
both were.
and he was good.
Last week they were horrible because
Neighbors
they couldn't do anything.
Yep.
They couldn't move the ball.
Yeah, Wandale's a better number 2 than he is a number 1.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely.
So like I said, stacking my quarterback, I'm actually going to go with Jalen Waddle because he is healthy. Like I said, if Tyreek was fully healthy, he'd probably be on the list or the next one off. My guess is he probably would bump Jaden Reed out of there on this list. So, but he's banged up, questionable, so I'm going with the healthy one, going Waddle. It's been a minute since we've had one of those monster Jalen Waddle games where it's like 4 for $120 and 2. It's only 4 catches, but it's crazy yardage and touchdowns.
And one of them is long. And,
Yep. So and that'd be the defense to the team to do it against is Arizona. So so I like Waddle, and I'm hoping for my Yahoo league too. So I got to start him this week.
Yeah, I had him last year. I mean, I like him. Great player. Arizona's defense again. I mean, they're easy to score points on.
Yep.
So I like the matchup for him. Moving on to our tight ends, we've got Kittle, Kelsey, Laporta, McBride, Evan Ingram, and Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid hasn't been on the list much.
No, he was one of those guys that what we were talking about preseason coming into the drafts. Everybody was like, "This is the year where there's 5 tight ends that could finish number 1 overall for the tight end group."
Yeah.
It's not Travis Kelce 40 fantasy points above the next guy.
Right.
It's neck and neck, and Kincaid was one of those guys because again, no Diggs, no Gabe Davis, so you figured necessity wise, but as it turns out,
he's just disappeared.
Yeah,
outside of pretty much Kittle, everyone else has kind of disappeared.
Yep.
Kelsey has been, Yep. Laporta has been almost droppable.
Yeah, well, I mean, Laporta had a good week 2 weeks ago, but it was on 1 catch, and it was a trick play.
Right.
He had that 52-yard touchdown, and it was on a trick
flicker.
play. Yeah. So so Kincaid, I think he'll start to pick up a little bit because they do have Amari Cooper.
Yeah. I think he'll open him up
James
more.
Cook back, fully healthy because he was banged up, a couple of weeks ago. So I think it will open up a little bit more, and I think Kincaid, again, he's not like we just said about Wandale. He's a better second option than he is the main option.
Right.
So.
Yep. So my choice this week is going to be Brock Bowers going against Kansas City. Kansas City, I'm just not impressed with them. And you're going to see, I mean, the only way that they get the ball moving is for Minshew to find a wide receiver or 2 or a tight end.
Yep.
And Bowers, like we've said before, Bowers has unbelievable hands.
Yep.
And I think he's going to be the main guy going forward with Devontae gone. And
yeah, there's all the buzz in the preseason about Trey Tucker. He hasn't done anything. Had the opportunity the last 2 weeks I had picked up Jacoby Myers after the Adams trade because I'm like, all right, here's the number 1 receiver granted it's for Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, but it's a number 1 receiver on in an NFL roster. So
yeah.
And then
my grandmother could probably do as well, and she's 6 feet under.
Yeah, so and Myers was he's injured the last 2 weeks, so I ended up dropping him. But I think Bowers is a tight end that can be your number one option because he is more. He's he's got more of that kind of Kelsey where he's more of a receiver tight end than a Mark Andrews who's a right tackle. So I think it's KC's defenses. They haven't been lights out, but they're still pretty solid. So,
they are.
It is a little bit of a tough matchup. But
it's,
again, just pure necessity, and Bowers he's very good. So,
he is.
Yeah.
He is.
We're
we're going to say he's probably going to be the number one tight end next year. I'm just kidding, because we were saying that about Laporta and this guy and that guy and McBride and the tight end landscape is just completely different than what we expected.
Yeah, like I said, there was that 5 guys that everybody was like, take your pick. It could happen to any of them. Yep. And it's happened to George Kittle, but
which is the least likely. We've talked about it numerous times that I don't like Kittle because he's usually feast or famine,
peaks and valleys.
But he's been pretty darn reliable.
Yeah.
And still had the peaks, but hasn't had the real valleys. So
I am going with kind of almost similar situation to Bowers, where it's just pure necessity. But I'm going David Njoku against Baltimore. Yeah, Baltimore is going to run up the score on Cleveland, and
because they like them so much.
Yep, they love them.
They love them.
So Jameis Winston in this week because obviously Deshaun Watson with the Achilles, and obviously Dorian Thompson-Robinson is not the answer. So they're going to let Jameis go out there, and Jameis ain't afraid to sling that football.
And that's the one thing that would scare me about trying to play Njoku, although Njoku gets down the field also. But Jameis likes to, like you said, he likes to fling it.
Yeah.
He wants someone 75 yards away, and he tries to hit him when they're 100.
Yeah. Well, that's what's nice. You look back at Tampa Bay Jameis, that season where he threw for, it was
5,000?
5,000.
30 and 30.
30 and 30.
Yeah.
It's like, the 30 picks, but, if it's a pick six, guess what? He's right back out on the field slinging it, So if you have a receiving option, there's plenty of opportunity there.
Yeah.
And right now on that roster, Jerry Jeudy, I don't think Jerry Jeudy's a very good NFL receiver. He's had a couple flashes, being decent, but I don't think he's a good NFL receiver. And they had Cedric Tillman. He had like 12 targets last week, so who knows? Maybe he's the number one that steps up in the at the wide receiver position. But
maybe I bring him up off of my taxi squad.
He might, who knows? But Njoku, I think he's so vital to that offense. And even though Jameis does like to throw it 65 yards down the field, I think he's going to lean on Njoku.
I think so too.
I think he's going to be the first read in a lot of plays they draw up.
And once you extend the field with some long passes, it's going to open some stuff up underneath. And if he's not connecting on the long passes, those short passes are going to be necessary. So
and like I said, Baltimore's they're going to run up the score, so they're going to have to throw it in order to try.
Even think about being in the same game.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got our love 'em, flip 'em, and leave 'em. And I know you love those 3 names on there, mainly because it's 3 running backs who have been out, injured for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. Isaiah Pacheco out since, week 2 or 3?
Yeah, 2 or 3, yeah.
We've got McCaffrey, who's been out the entire season so far, and we've got Chubb, who finally came back last week.
Yep.
Who do you like?
Who do I like?
Obviously, with all of these guys, it's based on the potential that they come back. Chubb is back. The potential that he doesn't get injured again.
Yep.
The potential that Pacheco even returns before our fantasy season is over.
Yep.
And if and when McCaffrey comes back.
Yeah, that is tough. I think even though I said I would never draft him again because he burned me 2 years in a row. I think you have to love McCaffrey.
Yeah, there. I think so.
He's, like I said, they're eyeing I think he said November here, or maybe early mid November here. So hopefully in in a couple of weeks he does come back.
Well, and he's such a game changer.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, granted, the West is a weaker division.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they need McCaffrey to make the playoffs.
Yeah, obviously now missing Ayuk for the rest of the season, Debo with the pneumonia. I still don't think they've really set a timetable for him. I haven't looked. I tried to trade for him, but I haven't looked within the last day here to see if there's any update. Obviously Kittle's been doing really well, but
and I don't want to say that Jordan Mason hasn't done a great job filling in. But Jordan Mason is not Christian McCaffrey.
They're a different team when McCaffrey's up, because the defense. I mean, the defense has to respect Jordan Mason, but it's a completely different thing when you have and like the Achilles tendonitis thing. They said it kind of flares up on and off, so he could be good one week and then miss the next week, depending on how he feels. But if you get a week of a fully healthy Christian McCaffrey, that's a completely different defensive scheme you got to draw up, because Jordan Mason hasn't been getting the targets like McCaffrey does.
Right.
He's a great runner of the football, but he hasn't been super involved in the pass game.
McCaffrey's usually going to get 5, 6, 7 targets or more a game.
Yeah.
And usually one of those is a touchdown.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree there. I am probably going to flip Chubb, mainly because he's available now.
Yep.
Pacheco, I love the way he plays.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, he's 110%.
Yeah.
He's really one of those guys that, even when he gets annihilated by someone, pops back up, runs back. It's never getting involved in any of the drama type stuff. He wants to play football.
Yeah.
And he'll give you everything he's got. And obviously, all of these guys working their way back from injuries and everything, they're dedicated, etc.
Yeah, like I said,
I love it in Pacheco, but I just can't see.
Well,
you don't know when he's back.
Exactly, that in the timetable of that injury. Like I said, trying to, make some moves here. Reached out, to try and acquire either Debo or package Kareem Hunt and someone for Amon-Ra. And the manager in the league, he goes, "Do we know anything about Pacheco?" And I said, last I heard was NFL playoffs that he might be back for. And then he went and looked online and said he was seeing that it could be a couple weeks, but we haven't heard anything. And I'm like, well, he cracked his fibula, and I'm pretty sure had to have surgery. So I think it might even be a stretch to see him at all this season, potentially.
Yeah.
Especially like we talked about beforehand with the way Kareem Hunt's been running the ball and looking, they've got no reason to rush him back.
Right.
And with the way Kareem Hunt has been playing and looking,
and the fact that they're 6-0,
exactly. And I think Andy Reid truly would prefer to have more of a committee as well. Because look at all the guys that have hung around. Even when Kareem Hunt was, the main guy, years, when he was their starting running back before Pacheco, they still had guys like Damian Williams. You look at Jerick McKinnon, who had monster games, in there. So
Jerick McKinnon usually had monster games because he had one screen pass for 65 yards and a touchdown, and then 2 more of something else.
Yeah, that's true.
He touched the ball 3 times and had 2 scores, and both of them were over 60 yards.
Yeah, he's the Jalen Waddle of running backs.
Yeah.
So, so even if Pacheco comes back for fantasy season, I think that Kareem Hunt will still be pretty heavily involved.
Probably.
So there's no real value in Pacheco in my mind right now. Obviously, if you were to flip McCaffrey, you would get good value yet on the name.
True.
And being like, well, again, if he comes back and he's just good to go for the the last however many weeks, fantasy weeks, like 6 weeks left?
Of regular season after this week, yeah.
Yeah, so, if he comes back and he has 5 fully healthy...
Oh, wait, 18 weeks now, so 50...
Well, U.S.
14.
Championship would be your 7 weeks.
Right.
17. Yeah, so, say you get 5 fully healthy weeks of McCaffrey at the end of the season, and you're a team that's, already in playoffs, or, say you're, up at the top of the league and the guy in last place has McCaffrey because he got boned by the injury, and you package whatever, and then you get it, you're going to get value for him, and you just, what if he comes back and he's healthy, and you can buy a championship that way. But again, then too, if you're the inverse, you have McCaffrey and your team, the rest of your team's been doing well and you're winning games, you're not going to trade him, in the event that he does come back and he's healthy, and all of a sudden you have a juggernaut going into playoffs.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
depends on your situation. But
agreed. That's all we've got for this week. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you'll have a chance to listen, watch. Hopefully you enjoy the games this week. I am Ozzy.
And I'm Austin.
Have a great week.
See ya.